Welcome back to Ruthless Metal. In today's video we're going to do a top 10 list of the greatest thrash metal albums of 1983. And we're starting in 1983, since it's generally seen as the year when thrash metal became a genre of its own. So if you're a thrash metal fan, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on future uploads. Because I plan to continue this series and put out new top 10 lists for each year. At least over the golden period from 1983 up until the early 90s, when it started to die off. We might also cover the revival era of the early 2000s, I just haven't decided yet. And in these videos I will present to you my top 10 thrash metal albums of each year. But I don't want this to be just a one-man show, I also want to hear your opinions on this. So I'm going to let you guys vote on your favorite thrash metal albums in my Discord server. So if you're familiar with the genre and listen to more than just the big four and want to cast a vote, make sure to join the Ruthless Metal Discord server. But we also need to establish some rules, and this is what I had in mind. 1. Only albums released in 1983. 2. Only full-length albums. 3. No singles, EPs, demos, live albums or compilations. 4. Only thrash metal albums. I also added an extra rule for this first year, since there was only a handful of thrash metal albums released in 1983. I have decided to allow speed metal and some aggressive heavy metal records, as well as some hardcore / crossover albums. So this list will not include thrash metal albums exclusively, but in the future this additional rule will be removed and it will strictly be thrash metal records. And note, this is not my top 10 list of albums from 1983, this is a list with a thrash metal perspective. And we might do a top 10 metal albums list later on, but that's for another video. And with that said, now it's time for the best thrash and speed metal albums of 1983. In 10th place we have Belgian heavy / speed metal band Crossfire and their debut album See You in Hell. And this is of course not a thrash metal album, but it was quite intense for 1983. So here is Crossfire with the song See You in Hell from the album with the same name. In 9th place we have the new wave of British heavy metal band Savage and their song Let It Loose from the album Loose and Lethal. And Savage was more of a traditional heavy metal band with a few faster songs. And the track that we're going to listen to was actually written in 1979, so this track was way ahead of its time, that's for sure. So let's listen to some Savage. In 8th place we have Canadian speed metal band Anvil and their third album called Forged in Fire. And this album was great, even though it ended up in the shadows of the more groundbreaking Metal on Metal record. And this album is also a mix of speed and traditional heavy metal. So let's listen to the track Shadow Zone from the album Forged in Fire.
Toxic liquor pollute the soil and breathe determination. Painted with the joke of life inflicting the
In 7th place we have another Belgian band, and that's Acid and their 1983 LP Maniac. And this female fronted band produced some of the most intense speed metal of 1983. So intense that some would even label them as the inventors of the thrash metal genre. So of course we had to include Acid on this list, and here's the song Black Car from the album Maniac. In 6th place we have the new wave of British heavy metal legends Raven, and they were yet another band that walked the line between speed and heavy metal, a style that they themselves called athletic rock. And during 1983 Raven toured with Metallica, and I think that there are some similarities with this record and Metallica's Kill 'Em All. So let's listen to Raven and the song Mind Over Metal from the album All for One.
But you don't have no choice. Standing to attention, waiting for his master's voice. How is the cry, but the screaming from the rear. Don't try to stop them now, just get the hell right out of here. Mind over metal. Mind over metal.
In 5th place we have a hardcore punk band from Venice Beach, Los Angeles. And I'm of course talking about Suicidal Tendencies with their self-titled debut album. And even though this record was more based in hardcore punk than thrash, there are some thrash-styled riffs here and there, and this record had another intensity than a lot of those heavy metal records on this list. And you might ask if this is a thrash metal record. Well, perhaps not, but it is one of the most intense and best hardcore records from 1983. So, here are Suicidal Tendencies with Subliminal.
Watching TV, I start to cry. For no reason, I don't know why. Could it be from messages on my TV? Which I'm getting subliminally.
In 4th place we have the Danish heavy metal band Mercyful Fate and their 1983 full-length debut album Melissa. And this was of course not a thrash metal album either, but it is one of the most sinister records of 1983, and one of the absolute best as well. Plus it had some great and intense riffing from the guitar gods Hank Sherman and Michael Denner. So let's listen to the track Satan's Fall by Mercyful Fate.
Turning up, we just
In third place we have Exciter Heavy Metal Maniac, and now we're definitely getting close to thrash metal territory. Heavy Metal Maniac was an amazing speed metal record that predates the top 2 picks on this list. So this was a groundbreaking record in so many ways, but not only that, it was a great record as well. So let's listen to Exciter, Cry of the Banshee from their debut album Heavy Metal Maniac.
You better run and hide. The beast will roar from deep inside.
In second place we have Metallica's Kill 'Em All, and this record was the starting point for the thrash metal wave that followed. And it could easily have been my top pick of 1983. It was a close call for me, but I decided to give Kill 'Em All the second place, even if I think it's an amazing record. There are still a few tracks that have some type of new wave of British heavy metal riffs, like Jump in the Fire for example. Still, this is an all-killer, no-filler thrash metal record. So let's spin Metal Militia from Metallica's 1983 debut album Kill 'Em All. And the best thrash metal record of 1983 is, in my opinion, Slayer's debut album Show No Mercy. And sure, you could also hear some Maiden-influenced riffs on this record, but I think that Show No Mercy is a more evil-sounding record. It's overall more intense and thrashier than Kill 'Em All, for example. And this is, in my opinion, Slayer's best record. I think it's better than Hell Awaits and Rain in Blood, for example. Maybe it's a bit less refined than those records, and it hasn't got that slick production of Rain in Blood. But each and every track of this record are great. And there were sure some Venom worship on this record as well. But I don't mind that at all. I think that this is Slayer at their best. And this album was also significant in the birth of extreme metal. So let's listen to the best thrash metal record of 1983. And this is Evil Has No Boundaries by Slayer.
Stop us tonight. We take down the world with hatred and strife. May have the reason we fight. Surviving the slaughters and killings we've lost. Then we return from the dead. Attacking once more now with twice as much strength. We conquer then move on ahead. Evil, my words get by. Evil, as now this guy. Evil, will take the soul. Evil, my wrath of bound.
So, let's take a look at the top 10 thrash metal records of 1983, and this is my full list. And once again, note that there were only 2 or 3 thrash metal albums released this year, but hopefully we can come up with 10 thrash metal records in the next video, when I'm covering 1984. I also asked you guys to vote on the top 10 thrash records of 1983, and this is the list that you guys came up with. And it's surprisingly close to my choices. The top 5 are identical. And in 6th place you guys chose Dirty Rotten Imbeciles and their Dirty Rotten LP. And that record was one of those early hardcore / crossover albums. And the D.R.I would later in their career move towards a more traditional thrash metal sound. So they were definitely one of the pioneers of crossover thrash. And D.R.I was a great band that almost made it into my list as well. And you guys also chose the new wave of British heavy metal band Satan. And they weren't really a thrash metal band either. They were more of a traditional heavy metal band, but there was just a lack of options here. So I guess it made sense to vote in Satan here. It's definitely an amazing record that all fans of heavy metal should listen to. So there we have it, the top 10 thrash metal albums of 1983, which I would like to think of as the birth year for thrash. And let me know down below if you guys agree with our picks, even if there was only 2 or 3 albums on this list that could be labeled as thrash. Did we get it right, or do you guys hold Kill 'Em All higher than Show No Mercy? Let us know down below. And if you have a good knowledge of thrash that goes beyond just the big 4, then I would suggest that you join the Discord server so that you can vote on the top 10 thrash records of 1984. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see me do more top 10 lists, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment so that this video can be recommended to other thrash metal fans. And if you want to support my work, you can now become a Patreon and throw me $1 or 3. All support is definitely appreciated, since I don't make a cent from these videos at all, since I use copyrighted music in these videos. And you can find the link to my Patreon page and my Discord server down in the description below. And feel free to give me your top 10 list in the comment section as well. It's always interesting to hear from you guys. And that's it folks, thanks for watching, stay heavy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.